And that was
I thought
our...
we were recording.
Oh.
So sorry.
No. Hi, this is the QUACKCAST, the Drunk Duck QUACKCAST, or the Duck Webcomics QUACKCAST. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Tanserine. Hi, Tans.
Hello.
Baines.
Hello.
Baines S now, apparently. And we have QUACKCAST.
Hello.
And of course, Quiet is on here because this is our last QUACKCAST of 2019 before we move into 2020, and we're doing a retrospective on all the features for 2019. So, and Quiet, of course, is the other half of the feature team. There's me and there's her, and we do one a week. We sort of take turns, don't we, Quiet?
Yes, we do.
Go around about. So we each have our we like Quiet. You do your Monday news post as well. Where you have to come up with content for that. I do like the QUACKCAST news post and the feature. So we each have our 2 things a week. And yeah, but the feature is a big part of that, and it's a lot of work.
It is. And it's always quality work, guys, which is amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
it really kind of like defines our website, really.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I feel like it's a great part of the whole community, though, to just try to get on that bar.
Yeah.
To see your name in the bar, it's our billboard of shining lights.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've even had a few people join the site just so they can get featured because it's a promo. It's a way of getting promoted and a way of getting your name out there. So every kind of thing helps. So people do sort of aim for that, which is a good thing. As long as it's not like, they're only coming onto the site, that's the only thing, and then they'll never update again.
Or they send us email threats to feature them. I've seen that too.
Hey, I said I was sorry about that.
Never forgive you, Baines. Never forgive.
Baines was just drunk when he did that.
Yeah.
Frequently.
I was drunk threatening for a feature. It's like, I need the leads. For the likes, I mean.
I need the lead.
Glengarry likes. That's it. It made no sense. So.
Features are for closers, Baines.
Oh my god!
Features are for closers, it's true.
Well, before we get into that, we've got to bring up, of course, the feature that just happened this week. We do have a feature, the last feature for this year. Quiet is going to do the first feature for 2020, as she did the first feature for 2019, which is going up on Wednesday. So yeah, she has that privilege, and I have the one of doing the last one. So the feature this week was ripping off King Arthur, which is a fascinating webcomic. This was one that Gunwallace recommended to me a few weeks ago. Quite a few weeks, or maybe a few months ago, I don't know. But I've just gotten around to doing it, and now I'm going to tell you about it. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was ripping off King Arthur. Actually, my feature for the last feature of 2019, the final one. There aren't any more this year. The next one will be in 2020 by QUACKCAST. But let me just get into this. So there's this theory that the key to success is simply to rip off the story of King Arthur, okay? But you have to do it in a way that isn't too original or a slavish knockoff. There has to be a perfect balance. Only then can you be a super successful, creative rock star at whatever you apply yourself to, like the highly lucrative and successful world of webcomics, for example, where billionaires and the world's most successful influencers have their playground. Aspetizer is one such king of industry. His hilariously spoofy comic is brilliantly observed with the right humor, cleverly timed setups, and jokes that pay off many strips later, and a good bit of comment on some of the silliness of the webcomics in general. The art is quite rough and sketchy. Some is in colour, but most is in black and white, just line art. The style grows on you, though, and it's consistent. If you want a Christmas treat, start at, let's see, it's about a third of the way through. It's, I've got a link to it in the actual feature blurb, where he starts at sort of Father Christmas kind of stuff. But anyway, we're coming up to New Year's now, so Happy New Year's Eve, and there wasn't a particular comic on that subject. Anyway, the comics are quite good. They're quite meta. They make fun of the way people do webcomics and the styles of webcomics and what people think about when they do webcomics. So it comments on webcomics in general, as well as just being, plain funny. Characters come back, like jokes come back, strips are referenced over and over, so it rewards a long, dedicated reading. So if you read through, you'll find stuff coming back, and it's a way of rewarding you for paying attention and sticking with it, which is really good. So I hope you enjoy Ripping Off King Arthur by Aspetizer. It's rated M for mature, but it's not really that mature. So I hope you enjoy it. All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye for 2019. And that was the featured comic, Ripping Off King Arthur. I hope you liked that. I love this. This is one of my really favorite comics. I would have told you about that anyway. All right, let's move on. The featured music this week, Gumballs has given us the theme to a comic called Faint. Faint. I think that's been featured. Kwai, you featured this one, didn't you?
F-E-I-N-T?
Yep.
Sounds so familiar.
I knew it was like you remember all your featured comics.
I know, but I have to see the pictures. I have to see what I wrote. That's what I mean.
Oh,
the names. The names are like a different thing. It's like because there's so many names. No, but if I saw the picture, I definitely would know. Yeah. Okay,
I'm pretty sure that it was yours.
Oh yes, it was definitely yes. No, I definitely know this one. It was like a hallucination, psychedelic kind of like new age religious kind of comic that was pretty cool.
With all the numbering done in Roman numerals for the pages. So
yeah, no, this comic was actually kind of fun and trippy at the same time.
Faint. Well, yeah, it's a good looking comic, deserved a feature, and now the theme. So the theme that Gumballs has done, it's a raw thrumming violin, importantly intones ripping chords over as it sets us up for a beautifully rocky crescendo that culminates in a tumultuous sonic climax. So take it away, Gumballs, with Faint. Featured music by Gumballs, which is the theme to Faint, which is a comic by Stone Dracoon, rated M. Fun comic that Kwai featured this year. So, talking about featuring this year, that is the theme of this particular QUACKCAST, a yearly review, a retrospective of the features we've done in the year 2019, because this is the last QUACKCAST for this year, and it will never come around again. So, yeah, it's one and done. Like the featured comics, they can only be featured once. So, all of us have had comics featured, haven't we, in the past?
Yes.
Typical Strain.
Absolutely.
Wolf.
Interesting.
Your comic was...
It's just Quiet Egg Access. And that was the original comic.
Yes.
I mean, it's college. Yeah. That's what it was. My slice of life of college life.
That's
right.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a very cel-shaded sort of comic, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, looked great.
Lots of tones of yellows and browns and stuff.
Yeah, just like my wardrobe. That makes sense.
And yeah, Tance's Wolf, Without Moonlight, and Brave Resistance.
Nice.
Yes.
And
also Peter's Putrid Meat and the Epic of Blitzov as well.
Yeah, even My Pinky TA has had its moment in the sun back in many years ago now, 2000 and something.
It was either 2006 or 2004, but oh no, it got featured before the site got purchased by Platinum.
I think it's probably about 2006, something like that. Who knows?
When I joined around that time, you were always just in the top 10. You were like way beyond featured, I think.
Oh, was I?
Right.
Yeah, I was often in the top 10 for a while, and then I finally got to number 1.
Yeah, that's when I was in the site, when you were number 1 on the top 10, and I'm like, ooh, this guy. No, that was exactly what I thought. I'm like, ooh, this guy, but he's also on the forums. He's a real person.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Well, yeah, back in the day when I still updated. I haven't done an update the whole of this year, I think.
I remember that one of the first commenters in Wolf was Oz, and I was amazed. Like, this person that is, super popular and makes all this super detailed, highly crisp, blueprint level stuff. Actually took time to comment under my stuff and tell me how to actually make a comic, because I had no idea how to make one. And he was and that was the other thing that was amazing. He was extremely supportive. And,
like a real person who's actually nice. He's not like egotistical and all that. It's just a nice person who's just wants to be on a webcomic site. Like, okay.
Mm-hmm. It was amazing.
Oh,
I feel like being number 1 on the top 10 could easily get to someone's head, but you were having fun with everyone in Top Drawer and all that.
Yeah, well, my thing was always to not be hierarchical and not think you're better than everyone, because, everyone has equal kind of chance to do something, and everyone should be given an equal chance to sort of get where they go. And just because you're a top 10 or whatever, it doesn't mean you're better than anyone. It just means, people are actually reading your comic, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you're doing things right, you're networking and all that kind of stuff, and updating regularly, whatever. One of the first people actually talking on that level, one of the first people to comment on my comic was Emilius.
Oh, wow. Charlie.
That's amazing.
Our perennial top 10.
Oh, that is hilarious.
So I was really just following her example. So she was like that, but she couldn't spread herself as thinly as I could back then, so she couldn't comment on everyone's comics, so she didn't have that impression of being as like a person of the people, even though she is. But yeah, so people are often, even back then, they used to see her as being more elitist and more sort of above everyone else, because her comic was always in the top 10. Yeah, and there was a lot of people who would be very jealous about Chubby the Vampire, and sort of go, that evil comic squatting above us, always there. And maybe we should take it off the top 10 because it's not fair. It never moves. And yeah, but she wasn't.
I'm amazed, I have to say, because she never came across as such a person, and legitimately so many people read Charby. So Yeah.
Well, a lot of them never really saw her as a person or never saw her much around the site, so they developed this model of her in their heads. So they thought, oh yeah, this elitist person with this comic above us, and it's like it's not even like in the top 10 because it's better. It's not in the top 10 because it's more popular. It's in the top 10 because someone put it there, like a tapper sort of thing. It's promoted. This is what you're meant to like. So they developed that idea of it. So
yeah. I remember there was a time where people were spinning this idea that features were only, between friends and stuff, which has never been the case.
Yes, all our best friends
are featured. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're friendly, and our comics have all been featured, but that wasn't because we were friendly. That was because, I wasn't an admin back when my comic was featured.
Actually, Oz, it's time to come clean and say that we have all paid to get our features there, and it's a very lucrative business. It's a black market of comics, and
like the duck market of comics.
Yes. Duck market, that's right.
Quack market.
The fogwa of comics.
Like the unpaid hours of work that go into a feature. I wish that was so. That can be like many hours of work that go into doing features.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is for that day when you do a feature. That's like a full-time job to do that. So that can be wearing. Yeah, but we should really talk about some of our favorite features. So have you guys got up 2019 page there where you can?
Yes, sir.
Go over it. Okay, so the first feature of 2019 was
the Run Stop Go by Bucket.
Run Stop Go.
Wow.
It was almost like a werewolf and a werewolf versus like vampire. This was a Halloween themey kind of comic happening right after New Year's, but it's like it's a werewolf versus a vampire at a bar, and this guy's like transforming into like a werewolf slowly.
Yeah, it's very much like a slice of life, but with werewolves and vampires and generally, fantastical creatures, which is very, very interesting. The art sells it very well as well because it is very evocative and the creator has a knack for expressions, so it really comes across. It's very vibrant.
It's a stylized, cartoony comic with pro-level art, pretty much. It's really high quality, good lettering, pro-level lettering. It's cell shading look to it, so it's quite a bold, good-looking piece of work. So yeah, that's it's very slick thing. But he only did she. They only got up to 23 pages. So it's good to actually, a lot of comics do this. Yeah. They reach a few pages and then they stop. But it's good to be able to have done that feature before it stopped. It doesn't matter that it did stop. But yeah. Because
that's interesting then.
Yeah, a lot of the time we'll feature a comic. We'll want to feature a comic, but we can't because it stops before we feature it. So it's already got 23 pages and then they don't do any more. We can't feature everything that's not updating or not current because it's like a fossil then. It has to have been current at the time of the feature. So yeah, it's good. So Run Stop Go was the first one. And we're not going to go through all the features. This is like 52 features. Well, maybe, probably.
Right around there, huh?
Yeah, it would be like 52 weeks in a year, so it'll be 52 features.
Yeah, exactly. So I've done about 127 of them.
Yeah. This other one's next one is interesting. Percival Pigeon's Perilous Percival Pigeon's Perilous Plan.
Ooh, pigeon.
Alliteration. Well, the reason
Very much alliterative.
I featured that one, and for me, that was not like an amazing level comic, but I featured it because this was something that someone put a lot of work into, and it was part of their student work for some sort of university project. And it was the idea was to make a comic that expresses some idea of environmentalism. And I thought that was such an interesting idea, and that was like, it was complete. It was like 30 pages or whatever, and that was one and done. So that was the only time I could feature it. If I waited too long, I'd never be able to feature it because it would have been, finished. But it was still current enough. It had updated recently enough that I was able to feature it. So I thought
it looks like it literally just ended. Like the comic was over, completed, and then it got its feature. So it was kind of like very nice. So it looks like it's like a 20-page thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's
21
really...
page. Yeah.
And it's a standalone, like 20-page comic.
Yeah, a nice little standalone thing. And I thought there's enough work put into that, and that it deserved to go up and have a little bit more recognition, for his piece of student work. And it was a good
Those
effort.
are small quote unquote one shots are actually very rare in webcomics. Usually you have something that's ongoing rather than a short story. So very nice.
Everyone goes on and there's nothing wrong with that, to go on and keep on doing a comic that goes forever.
Or else it's the permanent hiatus, like you're right in the middle of something and then it just stops for whatever reason.
Pinky TA.
I would guess usually one or the other.
True.
But to just have a little short one shot, that is true. Yeah, with an actual ending, and that's it. That's kind of neat.
Well, and another one that I really like was Vagabonds, Waifs, and Strays by Aristo Escondido. This was such an interesting comic because it's like massively pro level art, like really high quality. But the story and even the artwork is so weird because it's very surreal. It goes from like depicting some kind of slice of life to some like completely abstract page, like very trippy kind of, I don't know, trippy drug induced kind of image. It's just so weird as it skips from things. But I think the theme of it is about this guy who's incredibly bitter and angry at the world. And it's all from this guy's perspective of these horrible things that have happened to him. And even though, it's popular not to like stuff that's more hate-filled. People go, oh, haters, oh, it's so negative. Oh, this person, like this white person that's so angry or whatever. But for me, all perspectives are interesting. It doesn't matter. Things don't have to be positive in order to be interesting. A negative thing can be really interesting if it's done really well. And I thought this was, because I think that the writer of the comics is actually quite disabled in certain ways, which also gives him, a different perspective on life and how people relate to him and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he's put that into his comic. And it's just fascinating to read this character's very negative points of view of the world. You're seeing everything through that negative lens. So that was a fascinating comic for me to feature.
Yep. Let's see. I just want to mention though, Cafe on the Crepe was so cute. It was like the board game Candyland. Like everything in the world, the art was so cute. They were named after desserts, and the art was just this very fun child colors that are like candy and lollipops and cotton candy. So there was something very happy about Cafe on the Crepe when I was reading it. That I'm just like, oh, this is cute. They made this whole world building that's just like sweet and fantastical, like dessert cinnamon rolls.
So Vagabonds, Waifs and Strays was a big contrast to that when that came up.
Yeah.
Cafe on a Crepe is still updating, which is good. It updated all last year, and they just finished the final update of 2019. So they continued. Yeah. They continued going. Actually, Vagabond Waifs and Strays as well.
Yeah, that's good. They're good.
Mm-hmm.
Good on you,
Go
guys.
against the curve.
Yeah. Because often comics, they just stop. Okay, so what's another one, Kwai, you'd like to bring up there?
Let's see. I like... There were a lot of cute ones. I'm going to say that there were a lot of cute features this year. But definitely, I do want to talk about the Space Repair Garage because there was something about the art really was something I liked. It's the one that the characters almost look like little Lego people, but more specifically, like the way it's drawn, it's like a hand-drawn, very traditional architectural art style that had really fine line art that was very, they took a lot of time and precision to do a lot of the ship art, which I love. I absolutely love this kind of style. They look like blueprint plans almost for their characters. Everything looks like it's when you have a sheet how to put things together. That's what their comic looks like. Like plans.
Oh, like a Lego instruction sheet that they used to do.
Yes. And it's called Space Repair Garage, but it was just whoever is drawing it has this fairly good sense of like making technical art, and that's one of the big things I loved about it.
Yeah, it's a good looking comic. It's very angular line art too, and very accurate. Well, another one that was really interesting was Sacred Eden by Dame Helsing.
Okay.
Such a fantastic name. Dame Helsing. And it's just the artwork was very lush and colourful. And the lead character is this very curvy, young woman. And it's got such nice shapes and the imagery is very nice. It's almost Art Nouveau in the way it looks. And Dame Helsing's a good sort of member of the site too. She's very active around about the place, and yeah, so it's good to have her here, and her interesting mystery comic. It's wasn't that many pages too when I featured it. Now it's up to 154. So yeah, it's another one that sort of kept up.
She's really active on the thing. When she contacted me about her birthday, was just to spend like 24 hours live, like having a live show of her doing comics live. I thought she's got a lot of initiative, just on her end, having giveaways and showing her fans like how she makes her art. So she's really doing that PR kind of push for her comic.
Yeah, really building up her.
Such a good idea.
Because I did check it out at like 3 a.m. and there were like still 5 people watching.
Oh wow!
So it's like, I know it's really like, that's definitely awesome.
Yeah, good for her. Well, she's a fantastic artist, and she's got a lot of commitment to her work, which is what you need to do if you want to get popular with your work. You just have to have enough commitment to it to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
So many people don't. They think, it's this. What I did is great. People should come to me and promote me, and that's how it works. We're not going to do that unless we know you're around, and we can't do that unless you are around.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Sorry. The world doesn't owe you. You have to get in our faces enough for us to notice. And that doesn't mean like, emailing us or contacting us. That means just being around.
Just updating your comic and being around.
Yeah. Update your comic. Make a pass through the forums if you'd like, or do fan art for some people. That sort of thing. Just be around.
Precisely. So, yeah. So another comic you guys think is good.
I wanted to talk about my Cute Wish, though, because this one looks like an animation it's not manga because, I mean, when you look at the art, it's so crisp and clear. I mean, I honestly think that's like, it's got this really pro level of like anime art on it. But it's a story about like, you know, these two best friends, and they are asked their magic wish, and then one of the boys like says, I want the most beautiful girl in the world. And then he wakes up the next day and his friend's gone. And there's a girl instead. So did his friend turn into this girl? I don't know. But it's like now there's this like new girl in town, and she's, you know, got to deal with a lot of things.
That's clever. Oh, jeez.
I think the beautiful girl I don't know, I don't want to say it is, but might be his friend.
Yeah.
That would make it Ranma one half, like, gender bend. Everything that's cool right now.
Yeah, well, Ranma was the first one to really become popular for that.
Mm-hmm.
And to give its name to the whole gender bend thing. Yeah, so that's... And I love the name of the creator, Jiggleknot.
Jiggleknot. Yeah.
It's hilarious. Yeah, My Cute Wish, that was a really good one. One of the really good anime style, like beautiful colors, really excellent artwork, high level skill.
Yeah, but when I see that work, I always look at it, try to like figure out how are they doing this? Like, it looks like they're taking, you know, I know they're drawing it, but I mean, it looks like screenshots from a full-fledged anime with like extreme, like high quality digital work.
Yeah.
It's super like nice.
They just press they do digital work, so it's like you press the easy create art button and it does it all for you.
Yeah, all of it. Instant.
You
just draw the stick figure where you want them to be, and then there I go, anime in.
Exactly. It's like super simple, yeah. Well, okay, so another comic that I thought was really interesting was Redneck. Exactly. So this is basically, I would say it was influenced by John Carter of Mars, which is about some sort of like Civil War hero finding himself on Mars and joining all the weird kind of barbarian fantasy adventures that was happening up there. And his comic is like a modern take on that. So instead of like some Civil War kind of guy, this is a redneck that's found himself on Mars and having to hunt down the aliens. And it was just so fun, this mullet-headed guy in epic space battles and tales of revenge and dastardly doings, and it's so hyper and it's so like at another level to see this hillbilly. Well, hillbillies and rednecks are very different kind of things, but you know what I mean. To find this kind of redneck kind of guy in this, saving this prince of the cat people, and because the contrast is really interesting to me, because the whole like redneck idea is created around not the fact that they have these mullets and drink beer and shoot things. The real idea behind a redneck is that they're very insular and they're very parochial. They're stuck in their own tiny little world and they don't see anything outside of it, which is why they've got a mullet. Because no one else in the community around them, like in the wider world, really has that kind of hairstyle. It's just this tiny little community that does it, and they only do it because everyone else in their tiny community does it. And they don't really see or care about anyone or anything else, and they don't care about the world around them. They only have their tiny little world that they think of and they're into. And they only know about a very small amount of things, like, sports and their cars and everything else. That's the whole idea behind being a redneck, or behind being a gopnik or a bogan or whatever you call the your people in your part of the world who are like that. So this character is thrust into this wider world and outer space, and he's having to deal with his world expanding massively, and that's what I found really interesting. There's that inherent contrast in that. So yeah, that was a big part of why I did that feature. Did any of you guys read it?
I read some of it, really liked it actually. Yeah, it was really a lot of personality.
Yeah, it's on my list of to read the stuff. I have a lot of stuff that I intend to read. And
Always.
But definitely, it made it at least. It made that.
Made it that far.
Yeah.
All right, your turn, Kwai.
Okay, next one I want to talk about came from the April 10th feature. It's called Breached by Rathbone. This comic is done in a traditional comic strip format of just 3 panels each. But the story's got this like character who has to deal with like darkness, dark characters and all that stuff. Sometimes part of her face gets blown off, but it's done in this very stylistic drawing way that it's something that I feel like I would have seen like sold in like Hot Topic back in the 90s. Something that's just more like got this kind of a goth tone, but still like a hip, like really
cute.
What's the word? Like just kind of cute, but with like a little edge.
Yeah. Gothically
like
cute.
Gothic Hello Kitty, but yeah. And so there was something really cool about the original work on there, but like the characters and the style of the main character Shasta.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a cool comic. It starts off with this mystery. I read it too, all the way through the first few pages. And yeah, it starts off this weird mystery, like this girl has to find her way out of this place she finds herself in, and she keeps getting killed. And then she comes back to life again, but when she gets killed, she feels all the terrible pain of being, the terrible way that she dies. And she's having to sort of solve this world she finds herself in, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
And as you say, yeah, the look of it as this, beautifully stylized, cutesy gothic kind of thing, and it's all like in greys and blacks and whites.
Yeah, but it's like it kind of appeals to kids, maybe more like preteen teenagers. That style, when you're not too young, but you're also like you want to talk about like scary things too. I mean, I put this in the same genre as like. There are these books called like Cinderella that came out like about in the early 2000s that are in that. It's cute. It's got the quiet look, but it's got, like scary demonic like themes on it too.
Yeah, it does. It has that kind of feeling to it. I'm just adding it to my list of things to put in the links.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
nice.
We skipped over a few, but that's fine because it's 52 comics. So,
just for the record, it was Ursa Tale, which uploaded for about a month at the beginning of the year. Really good anime style art, really charming characters.
Oh, really?
Aconia is the other one that also kind of went away. I think. Am I right about that?
Yeah,
we need a complete record.
131 pages. So I'll have a look and see if it's still updating.
Yeah. Finished up about March 2019.
Aconia was a comic that I featured, and there was a bit of an issue there because I really liked the comic and I thought it was like definitely feature level, but the problem was that the pages out of order and there were pages missing. So I read through about I don't know, maybe 30 pages or something, which was all the comic was at that stage. And there are a few pages missing. And at first it didn't really hit me because you can take a few pages out of a story and the story will still make sense with stuff missing. And it will still work. And I actually did a QUACKCAST about that. How much can you take out of a story before it becomes nonsense? And this was still working even though there was stuff missing. Because you interpolate in your head, you sort of work out what happened between the things or imagine what happened between here and then. But then it got a bit too much and I realized, hang on, there's actually stuff that hasn't been in here. There's too many time jumps. So I actually contacted the author and said, look, you've got a bit of an issue here. You've got pages missing. You really should fix this. And, well, I didn't say I was going to feature it, but they responded right away and fixed it, and then I featured
it. Nice. Like, pro tip.
You have to do that sometimes. You have to just like contact them directly and just say, yeah, comic would be a lot better if the pages were in order, and you had all of them there.
Yeah.
But it was a good comic because it was like twists and turns. This is why it, it could survive a bit without pages. But then if there's too many pages missing for a comic that has twists and turns and a mystery and that kind of stuff, then it's not going to work after a while. It needs those. Because you've got a mystery, you've got clues, they're adding up. And, you have to have seen, like, the look these two characters gave each other or the secret message for it to make sense. And for the reveals to actually work. So, yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
That was a good comic. I loved it. I didn't read Ursa though. I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
It's about a lady and a bear.
Yeah. No, it's like, I think her husband turns into a bear.
Yes,
and then they go on this journey together.
Oh, really?
Really cool style, like a lot of personality in the characters and like great expressions and nicely done anime style.
Only 19 pages, so...
Only 19 pages. Yeah.
Maybe that was it. It was the feature,
That was it. You reached the heights.
Yeah, not very many pages, whereas I think even Iconia has stopped dating too. That was like in March or something, but still it reached 113, so...
Yeah.
It got up to a good level. So, okay, Bunny and
you had
Carol.
Bunny and Carol.
Carol.
Oh, that one
Bunny
was
Carol.
a bit... That was funny. So I think this rabbit's about to eat a carrot and start screaming. Like, and it's just a trippy, like, vegetable acid trip that was going on.
That comic, I looked at that and that was just not... See, I'm glad... What I really love about the way we do the whole featuring, there's two of us and we have slightly different tastes, and there's things that I would approach and things that I wouldn't, and the same with Kwai. So we have two different tastes. We don't just have it reflecting one person's taste. And so Bunny and Kuro is a bit too... it's like not really something that appeals to me, the look of it, and like the style. So it wasn't automatically something I would think of for a feature. So I was happy that you did that.
It reminded me of like the old like 90s MTV stuff that was just like, you draw in a way that's just like, whoa, that's zany, but it's
creepy.
Also kind of, I want to say like Ren and Stimpy, Ren.
Yes.
And
it does reminds me of that too. Yeah.
The Max as well, that kind of like, stuff goes all the way into the grossness and the evilness. Max, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Okay.
Yes.
But I just remember seeing the scene with this carrot, like, no, it starts screaming, and I'm like, oh, I can actually hear the scream through the page. So it was,
Yeah, quite evil. Like, so, Johan Vasquez did Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, I Feel Sick and all that before he went into Invader Zim, which is more cutesy and more fun. But his Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is quite reminds me of that kind of stuff, full on evilness and
evil vegetables.
Yeah.
Better.
Well, okay, Sunstrike and Blue Mist. If we're going like to talk about every comic, this was another one that's an interesting take on the whole superhero thing. So we've got a world where superheroes have to be like registered, or they have to be part of a special team, and if they're not, then they could risk government sanctions or being killed by or prejudice and all this kind of stuff because they're weird mutants. So that's an interesting take on it. And I think in this particular comic we have two kids who are sort of adopted, I think. And one of them is, well, you have to be a certain age in order to become part of the registered superhero team. And one of the kids has just reached the age where they can be part of that registered team. And the other one is just a bit young and, well, from where I stopped reading it anyway. And the one who was too young, you could tell was kind of having like negative feelings. Like yeah, I want to be like a good guy. You know, I want to like help my sister and all that. But you started to think, perhaps he sort of leans towards the dark side, so maybe he'll end up being like a villain, and she'll, go on to the good side and be a hero, and there'll be some kind of frisson between the two. It was interesting setup. And they had to sort of pretend they were normal to the outside world. So their whole lives are spent like, she's got bright yellow skin and he has these weird eyes and stuff, and they have to constantly cover themselves up and pretend they're normal and haven't got any special skills when they're out in public. So, yeah, they don't risk being caught.
Interesting.
Yeah, very.
By Shah Rose, 49.
Shah Rose, 49.
Well, Generation Y, did anyone read this one? This was your feature.
Yes. Let's see.
A feature.
I think. So wait. Oh, I was going to talk about another one up north. But Generation Y. Let's see.
I love the name on this one. Generation Y is so cool.
Yeah.
Because that used to be a name.
Oh, this one?
Oh, go on.
It's a manga, isn't it? I think so.
Yeah.
I think these are like kids who are. They live on the fringe of society, sort of, and they're like kind of. It just kind of shows them living in this town, like this dark town.
Okay.
Like, let me see. No, because I do remember that character who's on that picture. He's like a time traveler, or not a time traveler, but this character shows up, the one in the hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. Oh no, that could be.
It's good looking artwork. Anyway, it's really, really kind of high level artwork.
Right. No, it definitely looks like early 90s anime from the panel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think these are kind of like kids doing like questionable things, sort of. But then this mysterious person shows up who's gonna like change everything.
All right.
Oh, no, but it is cute manga. I see what you're saying, like in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So
I'll go on, Ty.
no, I was going to I don't think it's. I don't know. Are we going in order because, or are we jumping around? Because I would
You
like
could
to
jump
talk-
around.
I was jumping around.
Yeah.
Because I was going to talk about another comic at first.
I want to talk a little bit about Void, the guide
Yes.
to a healthy relationship. Very, very unique art style. The color palette is amazing.
Reminds
and
me of
there
your
is-
artwork, actually, Kwai.
Mhm.
Reminds me of your artwork.
It's got this like color pencil texture on most of the work. Oh, but this
Yeah.
one's like, it's like sketchbook professional, like, it's got that. The story is kind of sad because it deals with people who have addictions to things. He had a friend from childhood who was just like found, and he lost this friend, and so like even just like them mixing a drink at a bar, it's like kind of reminds me of a Requiem for a Dream scene.
Mhm.
All those details, but I think it takes a very like sad and lonely and depressing subject, sort of, but they make it into this like story that's just kind of real and human.
Yeah, and looking fantastic in the process. It really is an amazing looking piece of work. Okay, I like Baines' idea of going in order too, so I mean...
Okay. So we'll do 50 more to go.
Well, I don't know, I just like mentioning things. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's good,
okay, yeah, for sure.
I mean, you guys can jump around, but also,
Okay.
go back and mention
Fill in
things.
the...
Exactly.
Going forward.
Exactly. Okay, so Indentia, that was a fun little comic that I was really happy to feature because it's like a buddy comic. So you have the dynamic between the two friends doing their stuff. So there's this prince character who you'd think would automatically be the main character. But he's not the main character. It's his little alien kind of blue guy friend who's this like weirdo from outer space, who's like being his helper for some reason, his best friend, and he is the main character, which I thought was really unusual. It's like, say, Blackadder is the main character in Blackadder, even though a lot of the time he's like, you know, like say in Blackadder the Third, I think it is. He's like the subordinate. King George is the more important kind of guy, but Blackadder is still the main character. Anyway, so yeah, this was a fun comic about people in an alien world and like all the weird stuff they're doing. Artwork is pretty good. It's not like the most amazing artwork. It's actually pretty rough, but the story is what I really loved about this comic. So the story, you know, we're talking about a lot about like amazing artwork, but it's not always about amazing artwork. If you've got an amazing story and really, the artwork is nice and consistent, and that's all you need. So yeah, Indentia was a good comic. All right. Anyone got another one, or should I bring up another one that was in the middle?
Bring up another.
Okay, so Operation Boom by Reckless Hero. Now this is a comic with an amazing looking artwork because there's a part of a 2-person team. I think it's a 2-person team. Like an artist and maybe even be a 3-person team, like artist, colorer, and like a story writer. Artwork is phenomenal, but I have to say the story was like very, very cliche, very 80s, not 80s, very like typical 90s, early 2000s manga, anime. Cliche, like to the letter, to everything the characters do, to the way they talk, to the twists, to the plot itself is like pure cliche. It's like trope. But even though it's got so many tropes and so many cliches, it does it very well. It's like, you know, somebody just did a comic version of like a standard action anime and put it all down. And it was really popular. It was super popular feature. We had a lot of people really liking this one. So, yeah, that was interesting because of that.
Operation Boom?
Operation Boom.
Operation Boom.
I didn't know we had so many military people on Junk Duck.
Oh, we do, of course. Well, everybody likes a you know, a fun kind of
Action
yes.
kind of thing, and people like kind of classic. There's a reason why things become cliches or they become tropes or whatever. It's because so many people do them and so many people like them, and there's a lot of popular appeal. Everyone recognizes it, so there's something to you know, to identify with very easily. So yeah, there's a good reason for doing that kind of work. Good argument for it. So, what should
Something
I just keep going?
Yeah, well, you had Breached by Rathbone. That's a black and white comic. Shasta wakes up in the middle of a graveyard. Should I just read your blurb?
Yeah, well, it's quite already. We already sort of looked at that one.
Oh, that.
Oh,
one.
did you? I missed it. Okay, I stepped away for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was where she wakes up, and
There's also Angels of the Fallen by Basti LaRue.
Oh, I love her name, Basti LaRue.
Yeah.
Basti LaRue. It's a very burlesque sort of name.
Yeah.
So, Angels of the Fallen. This was a feature I did, and yeah, this was another really interesting one. It's like there's normal life floating on top of like a monster kind of version of the world. Like these two things coexisting. It reminds me of there's a famous young adult series of books, Shadow Hunters, I think, by someone Claire. So it's sort of like that. So there's the normal kind of life where everyone's like everything's normal, and they don't realize that there's this shadow world below where there's angels and demons and all this kind of and vampires and stuff underneath happening. And this story is sort of like that. And these two worlds are colliding suddenly now more and more, and things are crossing over. And, you know, it's it's especially very visceral in the way it happens in this comic because everything's sort of fine, and then this woman has her normal life where she goes to work and does her things and comes back home, but suddenly, like, there's a massacre that happens in a nightclub where she works, and you can't ignore the supernatural anymore. She's going to have to deal with it, and changes within herself, and what is she really? And you're getting, as a reader, you're slowly seeing all this kind of stuff. Oh, there's a secret life, Oh, what is the mystery behind her? What is her background? It's way more complicated than you first realize. So I really like that one, Angels to Fall, and as it slowly developed. Customer service, I don't know about that one.
Oh, I love customer service.
I like customer service because I had a job. I've had a couple of jobs as a customer service worker at a cash register, and it was from the perspective of just a girl who worked at a cash register, and there was a comic about like the weird customers and the weird boss. Sometimes you always have the micromanaging like boss at the register, and it was like, yes, a voice for customer service workers.
Yeah.
Well, like clerks.
Yeah.
The beleaguered cashier. Yeah. It's just like the awful customers and
the old women who want to talk about their pets and who knows children. And I thought there has to be a personal experience where this is coming from or being written from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably sometimes just working at a register gets those ideas in your head about writing a comic. I know that's actually how mine started. I was standing at a register, and I just started scribbling things on receipts because I had time during the summers, and so that's how. Yeah, that's what kind of got me started doing, comicking because service working.
I mean, mine's kind of the same from my job in the video store way back in the day. Although mine's not really about dealing with customers. Like, there's almost never been
Yours is more dealing with coworkers. Yours is like more like clerks.
Yeah, it's like like sort of a friend bonding, or sort of a not really about the work. So much. Although it was kind of intended to be more about the work in the beginning, but it just never really happened.
The work is the background.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're doing it right, you don't dread it. You make friends and you just go to the place because you want to see your coworkers and stuff.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we have Way of the Waifu.
Way of the Waifu.
Oh, Way of the Waifu. See, the artist in this comic has been featured a couple times before. Well, at least once.
He does horror. Had a horror comic, right?
Yeah, Jeremy Ray. Now, he had the most horrible comic. Not horror. The most horror comic I've ever seen. It was about dragons or something like this. And it couldn't be featured, I think. Well, maybe Skull Monkey featured it, but it was pure black and white. But even at pure black and white, it was still at, like, when I'm saying pure black and white, it's not grey and, like, 50 shades of, different shades of grey and stuff like that and white. This was like black and white, but the artwork was so, I don't know, just so good that...
Oh, I'm looking at it.
That the level of horror for this comic about dragons was just... My God, it was just too much. It was just
Wait,
so...
you read Tolkien? Hold on. This looks beautiful. It's like black and white stark. Very good line work. I mean, this.
Oh wait, Way of the Waifu is incredibly different. This is what's striking because
I'm looking at XTIN. Is what you're talking about, maybe? XTIN, the dragon one.
XTIN is like his different version of the same comic.
So it's not the old one.
No, he doesn't have that on the site anymore. A long time ago.
It was too much. It was too scary. Are you serious? It's really beautiful. Yeah. Like, this is almost like he could be a fantasy art illustrator or make those calendars that were really popular in card shops before.
Yeah, XTAN is completely different. So the
Okay.
original comic was just pure black and white and was just so horror. XTAN takes the same world, but it's a different take on it, and there's a lot of color art. It's very psychedelic. It's based in Indian mythology. It's Hindu kind of stuff happening there, and it's just very, very beautiful. So his color work is a lot less horror filled, although it is quite horror kind of stuff. Like there's people's brains and bodies being eviscerated and taken apart. Like skin being peeled off and stuff. But it's so beautifully done that it doesn't fill you with that kind of
tasteful
disgust.
horror.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
But anyway, Where the
So
Waifu takes things in a completely different direction. It's like cutesy,
Cute.
sexy, just ridiculous. Like it's taking off a lot of tropes where you have in manga or anime, where you have cute, sexy women doing different things, like a magical girl, school girl, that kind of stuff, and giving them their own weird worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so fun. It's so ridiculous. The humor is just insane, very surreal, and it's so weird. Like we have this one thing where there's these people and they're talking about piss, and they're using these male characters have these enormous penises, and they use them to propel themselves and fly around and by spraying piss. It's just so, and it's censored, of course. This is rated T.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually show anything, but it's just so silly and so funny that it's worth featuring just because it just makes fun of these rude kind of things in like a crazy Benny Hill kind of way.
It's like using like anime tropes, just like, or just how people
them.
use like.
It's massively subverting anime tropes. Just completely.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. This has got some with some adult themes for teen, but it's done in a way that's like you definitely could let it pass because it doesn't really show anything fully.
Yeah, it's more teen level humor too.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's justified in having that rating. So yeah, it's a good
comic.
Yeah. Well, then it's Jetpack Jill, which is that title.
Oh, okay, that was cute. That one was just like, there's this guy who's just going all around, Jetpack Jill, and wait, let me see that picture because oops, I went too far. Let me see. Oh, so she's like the one who she like repairs a ship. She's got a jetpack on her back. I think that's why. She's like, she just does chores on a ship like the whole time.
Okay. All right. So
she's like this redhead. She's a redhead who's from this planet, and she's Jetpack Jill. She just like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know, Punky Brewster in space. Like.
Okay. Well, yeah, and with amazing artwork.
Mm-hmm. I don't think she continued updating at all, actually, after
right.
feature.
No.
It's like one page and 1.5 pages.
Oh. How about the completely unrelated?
Oh, completely unrelated is another one that is, you look at like the early pages of this one and you think, look, the artwork is really super rough. It's just like, like really, really, not feature level, really, the artwork. But then you look at it and you think, okay, this is like 2011, these first pages. So Delicious Trifle, the artist, the creator, had so much commitment to this comic that they had kept on doing it to 2019 and is still doing it now. Most recent pages, like on the 20th or something. So, and I thought, this comic deserves a look just because this creator has been doing it for this long. And often when you look at, some rough stuff like that, you might like dismiss it and think, But I sort of thought, okay, let's jump forward, look at the most recent pages. Oh, wow, there's like an incredible development happening. So from these kind of rough beginnings, this artwork gets way more pro and the level increases and increases. And that's amazing to see that level of development over those years of work. 8 years of solid work on this comic is just all there for you to see this development. And even though those early pages are pretty rough, the story is really interesting and kind of original in its take on things. So it starts out about this woman who's a bit strange. She needs like a roommate, and she gets like a roommate, and they turn out to be different kinds of monsters that she's having as roommates. And they meet other people who are sort of slightly monstrous or slightly weird, and they develop like this weird relationships, and there's all kinds of strange dynamics between them, like a vampire kind of thing, and this person has this kind of weird thing to them, and they're keeping their other side of themselves secret from the world, and they have all these kind of weird, more and more weird interrelationships with all these characters. It's a very character-driven comic, a very relationship-driven comic, rather than like a comic driven by a bigger plot or some kind of like a situation. It's more a character-based comic and a relationship-based comic, which I found interesting because the more you read it, the more complicated these relationships get. So it builds on itself. So yeah, that's a good comic, completely unrelated, by Delicious Tribal.
Yeah.
Quasi and Pseudo. I love that. That's another amazing title.
Okay, Quasi and Pseudo was like, I thought this was amazing because it was weird. There was this character with like chicken feet, and there was like a winged rabbit. It's a bunch of like weird creatures, except the thing is that it was a story at the heart of it. At the heart of it was about friendship.
Okay.
Between these two like creatures, and like one of them, it's like the first couple scenes just shows like this one character having this major anxiety attack about getting texted. It's like it just shows them texting back and forth with this other character, and at the end it's like, would you like to hang out today? And it's like the person is just like, yeah, it's just really, it lightens the mood. But they're just in this world with a bunch of other strange creatures like plants and flowers that have like fireballs on them, and there's like this inventor at the very beginning who's kind of like watching everything that people are doing. Yeah, and so like the main character, that's who the thumbnail is. It's like it's the character who's having like this anxiety attack, watching for his cell phone to like light up and receive a text message back. But yeah. Yes. Actually, this same person won RD second and third. That's the person who made that comic about the guy who was like all by himself in the world once. Like Clint. This creator, yeah, Clint, yeah. This creator's really creative when he comes up with his own with these different ideas.
Oh yeah, Clint was a featured comic because it was such an excellent piece of work, and it was a feature that you did, I think.
Mm-hmm. Like years before.
Yeah.
3 years before. So yeah, Quasi and Pseudo, it's like another like, they're just in a strange world, but it's like not only are they dealing with, them being strange creatures, they're just dealing with regular everyday human things like nervousness, anxiety, and stuff that we also deal with.
Yeah, very relatable.
Yeah.
Well, next up is my feature that I did. This is one of my very favorite features of 2019. Monkey Nukes. It's just so good. This is a comic by Simon Mackey. I think it was a team, I'm not sure. Well, anyway, Simon Mackey's the... Hey?
London in the 80s, isn't it?
Yeah, London in the 1980s. So this guy who is like a comic artist moves into like almost a commune of weird people, and they're all living together in London in this weird flat, owned by this old bohemian lady who is like creative, interesting people living around her. and people are, it's really fascinating. Their relationships between all these different artists and creative people in this flat where they're living together, and the lead character, he's a writer, and he goes to, he has this little thing where on the weekends he goes to like all the different markets and picks up, fun punk music and all this kind of stuff. It's very, very 80s. It gives you the total feel of like authentically set in the 1980s. This isn't something that someone's like thought, oh, the 1980s were cool, let's like set everything in the 80s just because that's cool at the moment. This is like almost semi-autobiographical, because the creator who did this comic, knew that kind of scene firsthand. It's not like autobiographical. I say it's semi-autobiographical because it's writing from experience, right? So he actually knew this scene. He knew these kind of people. He knew London at the time, so it feels so authentic and it feels so real. It's called Monkey Nukes because of there's this cafe that one of their best friends, this Scottish guy, he wins a cafe in a card game. And this is a cafe where everybody sort of hung out together. But the owner's a real dick. He's this real, like, nasty old Scottish guy. And this fun, funky Scottish guy wins it from him in a card game and calls it Monkey Nukes, which is after his amazing dream he had about this monkey hijacking a nuclear weapon. And so he names the cafe out of it, and it becomes this social hub for this whole group of weird kind of artistic people, and they have live music and artistic videos playing on the big screen and stuff like that. And it's such a cool story about all the kind of stuff happening in the 80s, like drug addiction and murder and all this stuff pops up in the comic and goes on its own tangents. Unrequited love, old relationships coming back into people's lives, new relationships happening. It's fun. I recommend this really, really highly. This is one of my most favorite comics of 2019. So happy to be able to feature it. And shortly after I featured it, it finished. So I was able to feature it just before that. So it's a completed comic. So you read this, you're not having to wait for new updates. You're not having to see a hiatus. This is all done. One and done. Complete.
Oh my gosh. Sounds amazing. I mean, the 80s and all that stuff you say is relatable.
Yeah, it was so good. So good.
So yeah, the next one, I think if you've seen it, you'd have a comment about this one possibly. It's like bringing back the mermaid legends. Oh, it's called Ice Massacre.
Yeah.
By Ice Massacre.
Very convenient, that.
This is one of those, you believe those stories of the maidens of the sea, and then they show their teeth, and they're evil, and they drag you down, and they're very violent. But yeah, the work is done beautifully. It's like it's like an animation.
Yeah, very
Almost
Disney style,
like a Western style animation. Chance, do you have anything to say about Ice Massacre?
Well, mermaids generally are not really my thing, but this is beautiful in terms of art, absolutely. And it is a very nice not turn or twist. I mean, the myth has been around for ages anyway, but usually mermaids are being depicted very Disney-esque, let's say. So having them, like allowing them to be their full potential as deadly creatures, and going from there, that is, kudos from me. Like, if I had to read a mermaid story, I would read that one.
But I think what the twist is in this one is usually like mermaids are dragging down men, but the main character, this is a female who gets kind of like she's getting lured down into the sea by the mermaids, which doesn't happen as much.
Yeah, because it's about men's susceptibility to sex and females. Females power over men through sex, so it's usually about that. So this takes it bit further from that.
Because there's a strong woman who can do men things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is created by a total female team, so you have Tiana Warner and April Pierce working together on this one. So perhaps that's why it's got that different kind of take on it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, the usual male-focused thing.
Right.
Because even though, mermaids are, often, when they're given, a character in a comic, it's more male-focused. Often mermaids have more of an interest from females because, a lot of ladies want to be a mermaid.
Yeah.
So it's good to actually have that realized in the story.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Next up, I'll go on, Kwai, sorry.
Oh, no, it's Tans.
Oh, Tans.
So then we have the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh, yeah. Now,
which is very special, I think, as an endeavor.
Oh, yeah. So it's using the proper title from, the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing, which is interesting, which not many people do. And it's by Mixed Monsters, who is a fantastic contributor to the site. All over the site. It's great. It's a big comic.
Very supportive.
Yeah, very supportive. Over 345 pages. Yeah, it's a fun comic. The art is okay, we're talking about the art of Ice Massacre. Wow. Art in Strange Case is not that level, but it is consistent. And which is another important thing. It's very consistent. Stylization is very particular to the creator, so it's very much in their own style, very original. No one else does it quite like Mixed Monsters, but is consistent. So it's the characters don't change shape and style.
It has its own, as you said, its own flavor, and I think it lends itself well to the subject matter as well, because she focuses a lot on the clash between the personalities of Jekyll and Hyde, and there is this magic element. Sometimes it even reminds me of The Mask in the sense of having this transformation where you get not only the main characters that change back and forth, and they are the main ones, and they do have to deal with certain mysteries or foul play and so on. But this portion does do this to others as well, and that's a new take. And it is very interesting to see what is being produced, like the doppelgangers of different characters in her cast are not necessarily what you would expect, which is, I think, very, very interesting.
Yes, it is interesting. So in the comic goes over, I think, a couple of different stories too. It goes on completed story and then a second chapter almost, I think, from memory. But in the first series, the antagonist of this character is one of these people who is this character is this poor loser kind of guy. He does everything right, and he's a really, really good person because, as Dr. Jekyll is meant to be, but this guy is really good. He's really nice, kind of wonderful guy. And so when he turns into a loser in that, there's things he wants, there's love, he loses out in love, he loses out in jobs, in positions, and all this kind of stuff. It's because of, these other people working against him. He doesn't take umbrage at that. He thinks, oh, maybe it's something I did. Maybe it's my fault that I didn't get this, or maybe they deserved it. I'm really, really peeved. This is really bad for me. I'm upset. But, I can't take the good thing away from this person that they've got. They worked harder than me, or they did a slightly better job. So he's a really, really good guy. And the thing is, the way Mixed Monsters writes it he's not a saccharine kind of good guy. He's not good because, oh, he's goody two-shoes. He's like genuinely good. And the comic really takes that to heart. It's about real goodness and about how, being good is good. It's not just being a sap. It's not being a loser. It's not being, some wimp that gets taken advantage of. And if you had the power, you could like stick it to all your enemies and go, what for? Yeah. See, I'm a good guy, so I'm allowed to take revenge on you because I'm a good guy. It's not really about that. There is a character, like the evil version of him, the Jekyll version, who does want to do that. But this guy is so good that he almost like reforms the bad guy. And it's a good comic. It's complicated in that. It's more complicated than you'd think. But that kind of theme of goodness and being honest and being, true to yourself and your own values is, I really do like that. It was done very well. It's not done in a kind of like annoying, like Lisa Simpson kind of way, or, harping at, you should be good or you should do this, like a Disney kind of a moral to the style. I think it's done better than that. I think it's done well. So that was a strange case.
And then we have unprecedented cleanup, which is basically ghost busting.
Yes. This one's just like a guy kind of like has this John Lennon look to him, but he's got horns, and he's almost like a psychiatrist for ghosts probably, but he deals with demonic presences, and so he just wants to be left alone, but then he gets home and they're already in his home. It's got this anime manga look to it, but it's also, I think they're bringing in like some religious type of symbolism sometimes that's like, okay. Like when like anime brings in priests and all the pentagrams and stuff like that.
Oh, right. Yeah. They just throw them in there.
Yeah.
Random religious stuff all in one big melting pot.
But yeah, it's got this, I don't know, it's like, read it if you are okay with the demonic.
Okay. Well, the character looks like he's part demonic.
Yeah, he is, with the horns.
Yeah. Well, alright. My next feature was Android Blues by Stahlberg. I love that name.
Nice.
That means Steel Town, if you translate it. Anyway, so this is another big favorite of mine.
Oh, yeah.
And this was the one where I had to it was adult rated initially because there was nudity in the comic. And the creator thought, well, if there's nudity, well, I should, and be on the safe side, I should rate it A. And I read through the comic and I thought, oh my God, this is so good. The art is so amazing. It's just incredible. It's a shame to have it like closeted away on an A rating. And I had a look and there's really no real sex, no real stuff that should make it an A rating. So I talked to the guy and I convinced him to change his rating, and then I was able to feature it because it's not a hardcore sex comic at all.
Okay, this is good. Yeah, I agree. You did a good thing.
Yeah,
This is definitely not. There's no sex in this comic. Like in the beginning, first pages at least. It's like this is a legit comic to be. Yeah, it wouldn't have gotten the number of readers it should have.
Yeah, exactly. It should be like a major comic, and it should be on that level. Stahlberg has
this is gorgeous.
An amazing job. And a lot of other, this is the beauty of Junk Duck. So it has got some nudity. It has got like one page with a sort of a sex scene, but it's not like a full-on kind of thing. It's like tasteful and it's hidden enough.
It's not 99% of the comic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but on a lot of other comic sites, it wouldn't get that feature.
Yeah, it's tasteful, and it's something that you would see on television.
Yeah,
say.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
An M-rated movie, something like
Kill Bill, kind of.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
I see.
But, alright, the story is sort of like this character is like, wakes up, like with no memories, has committed a horrible crime, in like some kind of diplomatic party or something like that. And the police are after her now. And, you know, she's like on mainland China. So most of the comic takes place in China. So you've got all that kind of unusual background that you would not normally have in a comic because, you know, a lot of people don't set their comics in China, which is rather interesting. So you've got, this Chinese setting and this weird android having to sort of make her way around the place. And she's very sexy. She's, you know, often, you know, not wearing very much. So there's obviously that kind of draw to it. But that reminds me of comics like Ghost in the Shell, or maybe even like Druna, you know, famous comics you'd see in like Heavy Metal magazine. It's so even though it has that draw of a sexy female protagonist, it's got an unusual setting. It's got like amazing artwork and obviously a lot of great influence behind it. The guy draws human figures beautifully. He draws machines and robots and weapons and stuff like this with amazing skill. It's, you know, coloring, rendering, just wow. So yeah, that was one of my favorites of 2019.
Thanks.
So next up we have the Caraway Crew.
That's beautiful. Caraway Crew reminds me of this very specific like style from Tap left. Oh, it reminded me of this. There's like a Carol Carpenter song that goes with like chicken soup and rice from back in the day. That this kind of has that feel of it, the 1970s cartoon look, and it's about a bunch of little kids who are in a town and they're trying to seek treasure or like they go on this adventure. But I think there's like a will that someone's left, and they're just trying to unbreak the mystery of what happened to one of their one of the children's parents or something.
Okay.
But it's a fun little adventure. Very like, it's definitely geared to like teens or children, you know, like for that audience.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I got like this fun like, it's got like that animation that was like popular around like Schoolhouse Rock or like pre-Rainbow Bright. Yes.
Yeah, definitely has that kind of animation look from the mid 80s, early 80s. And the thing is, this comic has been on my feature list for a long time.
Oh, okay.
It's weird. It's still there, I think. I've got to remember to take it off because I was always intending to feature this one too. It just looks so good. And did you realize this comic's actually finished on the 23rd?
I didn't realize it. Didn't realize it just finished this month, like a week ago.
Yeah.
It finished this week. Yeah, but there was something like the colors are muted. There was a really nice nighttime color palette. Lots of brick reds.
Yeah.
Natural colors coming on here. Yeah, but I don't know. It had this nostalgic feel to it, and I was thinking like the adventure they were going on, similar to like the Goonies. So it's just like a fun adventure comic for kids.
Yeah. That's another thing about our features. They span from something being more of an adult kind of thing, like Android Blues, to something that's a lot younger. So we go along like a massive span. We don't have like a thing. Oh, every comic has to be safe for kids. It's
it's everything. Anyone who reads comics, I think that's the thing, is that comics are not just for kids anymore, as well as animation. So like there's a range because people on the site are also adults who want more than just just young stories. But I think there's a beauty in like reading things for kids as an adult, because it brings you back to that time of your life, and especially when the art style is something that you remember from like, I don't know, 30 years ago. That's also kind of really nice to see it being produced still today.
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't want to say, okay, we can only feature more adult stuff and no kid stuff. I like it being a mix of all of it. Yeah, something that's a lot more like, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and something that's a lot less innocent. It's the full range of human experience, and the Caraway Crew definitely fits into that. It's a really, really strikingly good example of what you can do with webcomics.
Yeah.
Well, next up we have The Great Khan. The Great Khan. Now, I'll be honest, I looked at this comic first because the title is just so cool. The Great Khan, and the creators like GR8K4AN. The Great Khan. This comic is actually a very conventional comic strip kind of comic about, this kind of creator whose life gets turned upside down when he has this weird kind of magical creature who imposes himself on his life. And he, just has these weird characters within his life, creating all sorts of weird complications. And it's a comic strip, so, 4-panel, setup comedy. And a lot of the jokes are sort of very hit and miss, but it gets better as it goes along. But I really just featured this because it's a good example of a newspaper strip comic where the creator has thought about it a lot and, created a really kind of slick kind of good piece of work that could be sold commercially. And I thought, this is really a slick piece of good work, and it's a great example of that style of work. And they've been doing it since 2010. So they've stuck with the site since then, and they've sort of gone away at times and then come back and gone away and come back. And most recently they came back in 2019. So it was good to actually reward that persistence and them maintaining that level of skill.
Yes. For sure. Great Khan. Yeah, it was okay. I'm just looking at the art. It's really colorful and also drawn pretty funny expressions. So the feelings of a high school girl. I believe this whole thing is about. It's okay. I think that the main character is definitely a boy who plays music.
Yeah.
He's like a guitarist. But one of the things, he also lost his arm in a freak accident. I think his mom was responsible for it. So he constantly has this nightmare of losing his arm every single night. And then when he goes to school, he has to deal with a lot of stuff there, except there was this beautiful image that was like a wallpaper almost. And I just thought, oh wow, there was a high level of attention to detail to the cityscapes and the futuristic look of this comic that I was like, okay, if anything, people have to see some of the pages of this comic because they were just so well done and pretty.
Yeah.
So it's got this cyber punk look, anything with the animatronic arms. Oh yeah, but he's also got a sister who's webcasting and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's quite contemporary in a lot of the themes there. The artwork is massively improved too.
Right. Well, now it just looks really clean.
Yeah.
I noticed that it went into more of a digital, clean lines. Looks very flawless, and no blemishes on the faces or anything. Right.
Yeah.
And there's also now an Asian. I believe it's Japanese writing at the top.
Oh right. Okay. Well, I like this is another one where the title kind of stood out to me. Feelings of a High School Girl. So that one has been on my my features list again.
Yeah.
Just because.
But the thing is that he's obviously a high school boy, so the feelings of a high school girl, I don't know if that's referring to another character who's going to get feelings for him because it's not his own feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because that's such a fantastic title. Who the feelings refer to? But yeah,
The Feelings of a High School Girl, yeah.
Amazing title. Cool piece of work, and it's a comic that I read through as well.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is The Frolic.
The Frolic.
Well, this is a comic about a hard-bitten detective who smokes and is going after, serial killers and stuff like that. And his marriage is falling apart, like really super falling apart, like way more than they usually do in things. Like his wife absolutely hates him and does all sorts of horrible stuff to get back at him. And even though he doesn't like her, he is... he sort of really does like her, so he's not someone who would want to get revenge for the things she does, even though, it's the level of emotion in this comic was really, really striking. The amount that people hate and feel for each other. So this is this character's tale of trying to go after this killer. The writing is often very, very poetic, like almost like song lyrics. It's a cool comic. It's very noir.
Yes, I saw that.
It's interesting. And the writer, I think, is English as a second language too, from memory. I think it's like Swedish or something. I can't remember. But yeah, it's an interesting comic.
But you can even tell from just they look at the different skin colors, and I mean, this guy's pale with dark hair, and the town, you see the nitty gritty, you see the dirt on the buildings and everything like that. So his name is Frolic. She was said something, but it's spelled differently. It's like
with
Frolic with a K.
Yeah.
So I don't know why the title would be. Maybe they're just using two types of Frolics.
I think it's like one of those things, like a slight like a joke on that. So he's called Frolic, and then the Frolic is
okay.
I can't remember. It's so long since I read
Mr.
it.
Frolic, you're right. It is. Mr. Frolic is a detective with issues, and then it does read here the Frolic. So there's definitely an intentional naming of him being Frolic.
Yeah. But it's good. It's a comic I featured because it's pretty cool. It's by Paulie Blade too. Paulie Blade.
Yes.
Which is a cool name.
Okay. Oh, good, nice one. Yeah, that's got some tones. Okay, so The Mystic from Wanzerby by Delcino came after in August. This one's like there's a girl who's being transported as a slave girl across the Sahara, and then all of a sudden this guy shows up, and of course he saves the day. He's like one of those mercenaries that protects people, but it takes place in that part of the world, the Sahara, the Africa part, just deserts and lots of sand. So there's a lot of great art that's just drawn with blue tones.
Oh, the art is delicious. Yeah, it's really high level quality kind of work. Quite clean too. It's a very typical digital look to it. It's an interesting theme in that it takes place in Africa, and it follows those slaves and all that kind of stuff. And Wanzerby, is that a real place?
I don't know. I think she learns from this guy because, as she says, everything I've ever known as an adult, I learned as a child. This one situation probably taught her so much. He's probably the mystic, the mysterious guy. She probably learns everything from him.
So it's worth looking at just because of the unusual setting. Saharan Africa and slaves and all that kind of stuff, because so many comics are like slice of life in typical urban areas. So it's good to get away from that. Well, next up we have The Adventures of
Kevin Kidd,
which unfortunately it's sort of finished at a weird spot and not gone any further from that on the 16th of August. But this it's a fairly typical story in some ways, in that there's this weird character who doesn't seem to fit in, this child, and he can't even speak. He finds himself in the middle of nowhere, and people just start to help him. Like he's in this like weird kind of like little village or something like that in the middle of nowhere in America, and he sort of has to rely on the help of these people, and they give him clothes and stuff like that and food, and they help him, and then people find themselves threatened because there's this military or spies after this kid, and they have to protect him from what's happening. So there's that kind of setup, which isn't particularly original, but the way it's done is quite original. So you have this tiny little boy who finds himself in the middle of nowhere, like in a cornfield or something, and these really old kind of men come and take him home, because there's this strange house full of these weird old men with this weird lady in charge of it, and you think, like, oh my god, is this going to get dark? These are kind of obviously disturbed kind of old men, and they're taking this boy in under their wing. What's going to happen? And fortunately, it doesn't go dark, but it's quite interesting because you don't normally see like weird old men like with issues and like mental problems.
Yeah.
Looking after this little kid, and this little kid is actually protecting them in the end. That's what happens behind the scenes. They don't even know they're being protected by him. So that's why it starts to get interesting, because even though it seems to be cliche, it diverts away from that, and it's turning into something like interesting. And you see, oh yeah, this kid, why are these spies after him? Why do they want to kill him? And how are these old men going to protect him? And how is he going to protect the old men from being killed by them? And yeah, so that's why that one struck me. The artwork isn't like top level, but it's consistent, and the style is really interesting.
Nice. Okay, so moving on, the shoot-in. The shoot-in was, I almost feel like there was someone who wrote this story, had a stake in what happened during this one tragedy, because they keep wanting to talk about this great tragedy that someone was shot to death by a warden, Wilson Waldron, who was the county commissioner. And it keeps going back to like this court case that happened on that day, just to show and to prove who really did it. So I don't know if there was a relative in Colorado that kept saying like, this shouldn't happen and this happened, but this comic was made to set the record straight on who was killed that day and who was actually right and who was wrong.
Yeah.
So it does take place around like the gold rush era in the 1800s and mid 1800s, where like people took the law into their own hands sometimes. It's like an old western almost, and it's just the accents that you can like see when you're reading it. That's one of the things that I loved about it. That it's regional, it's historical, and there was just this like vendetta of getting a message across.
Yeah, setting the record straight. Yeah, telling the truth. There's something really happened, and they're shooting.
No, they just kept saying, "Don't ever forget that tragic day." It's just he had a very passionate like belief about this guy Isaac Alden as a nice guy. Everybody in the town loved him. So yeah.
Oh jeez. Well, next up, my comic was Limbo Road. So this is another example of a very slick newspaper strip kind of comic that, like I like to have a bit of a representation for these comics, because mainly we feature story comics, and we obviously have a bit of a bias towards that, in that it's more interesting to read a story comic, especially for a feature, because we're reading page after page after page.
Yes.
So we want to have a bit of development as we do, and a bit of a story. So we're not as likely to feature newspaper strip, 4-panel or 3-panel gag comics. So this is a good example of that, with weird characters, and it's really well done. And
that's awesome though, to have like a strip style comic that you can just walk in at any point and like get a good laugh without having to read the whole archive.
Yeah, very much in the style of, I don't know, like Far Side or something like that. So
Sherman's Lagoon.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yes. Oh, and so the next one, the True Face. This one was interesting because in art history, they always bring up this fetish figurine of a woman holding two snakes in her arms, the snake goddess. And this is the first comic that I ever read that kind of brought the snake goddess into the realm of literature or anything besides just the sculpture.
Yeah.
And this woman takes place in a ancient time where like people use like grasshoppers, giant grasshoppers to like roam around, and there's these two competing clans. And she has to like pass through a series of tests in order to there's like a slave who gets arrested, and in order for him to survive, this woman like gives him a couple of clues and what to answer after being asked all these like almost like oracle type questions.
Okay.
But yeah, it's that whole like bringing back the goddess and that universe kind of thing that I was most intrigued by, because those are real things. I've seen them, like they are cult figure statues and stuff from the past.
Yeah, I've seen those too.
Yeah.
So it's giving it a hypothetical existence, a hypothetical world that was based on this stuff. That in order to give it a real context for it to exist in. Oh, it's by
Marco Rossi, that guy, the guy on the forums.
Yeah, who is a bit of an
Italian guy.
Yeah,
who watched the original Lady and the Tramp in Italian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fantastic to have his comic featured, because he is a really interesting guy,
but that's also part of like closer to the world where like snake goddess statues came from, like Mesopotamia, Italy, Greece, all that.
Yeah,
that's old world, so that's why it would be in that part of the.
Oh yeah. So he has a lot more connection to that. Well, next up we have Stunlock. Stunlock, another stunning title. A lot of these comics have stunning titles. Stunlock is a bit of an example of a comic that really doesn't exist much anymore. It's a pixel art comic, what a lot of people mistakenly call a sprite comic. So the difference between a sprite comic and a pixel art comic is a sprite comic is made by ripping a sprite sheet from, ripping sprites from an old 8-bit or 16-bit video game, putting all the different poses of this sprite. So a sprite is what you call a little animated figure that you use to sort of travel the world in like a platform game, like a 16-bit or 8-bit. And those consist of like, I don't know, maybe 16 or, maybe like 5, whatever, like different images of all the poses of that sprite. And so people would make sprite sheets in order to have them, all the different poses of that sprite and different color forms and stuff like that on one sheet. So they could like take that out, select it, and put that on a page and, just do a comic with this pre-made artwork. So that's sprite comic. And it has a pixelized look. Pixel art is a comic that uses the style of 2D platform games, but this is artwork created by the artist. So it was never sprites, it was never used in a game, it's just created to look like it was. So it's a massive difference. It is absolutely not the same thing. It's a lot of idiots, I'll say, get those confused. They are not the same thing. Sprite comics are original art, and it takes a lot of work to create them. And yeah, so this is an example of that. And these comics, like sprite comics aren't that popular now, but also pixel art comics were very popular a while ago in showing like RPG games. So the old style Japanese RPG, JRPG games, they really lent themselves to that style of looking pixelated. So that's why you had that kind of artwork. One of the most famous was I can't remember. It's about like the Red Warrior and the Dark Mage and stuff like that. 8-bit, I think it was called, something like that. But that was based on Final Fantasy. They had been, originally. But there were other comics like Monster Destiny by Squiddy. This was a pixel art comic where he's, totally created based on a platform game and, creating his own world and his own story. Anyway, so this comic does sort of the same thing. It's like a character in a platform world, not a platform world, but like a JRPG. And with the rules of a JRPG, starting out with a crappy weapon, trying to find a better weapon, and, creating a party by meeting other people and going on adventures and stuff like that, and having them help you and you help them. But the lead character in this isn't a hero kind of character; he's a thief.
Okay.
And he partners up with this dumb paladin and different characters. It's really fun. It's really funny. It's really well written. There's some things that aren't written as well, but mostly it's really, really, really well done, and I really liked it. It was a really funny comic. It's one I enjoyed.
Nice. Okay. So Speaking in Tongues was a religious comic that had a lot of Gothic influences in the architecture and the drawings and everything. Let's see. I think, the idea of speaking in tongues comes from that belief that you can speak a language that all the universal languages can understand.
Yeah.
Right. And this one also had to deal with you're dealing with religious people against heretics, and these heretic marks are appearing all over the city, which means that you need somebody to come in and kind of fight against the demon uprising.
Oh.
So there's a lot of demonic comics. I'm sorry that I think I was honing in on, and there was a lot of features that are a lot of comics are dealing with these demons themes.
Well, there's a lot of... go on.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying the art. I remember the artists, they did a lot of research for the buildings around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, as you were saying.
Oh, I was going to say there's a lot of that in pop culture. So a lot of it, back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and
yeah,
it's a popular theme and it's all anime.
Yeah. So it's not a message that they're here, they're coming. It's just something that as a society we like to venture into in our literature and our fiction.
Exactly, it's fun, it's striking, it's real. People already are primed to enjoy it because it's already in other media, so we like it in other things as well. So
yeah.
Well, Out of the Blue is another interesting title. This is another weird one. The art is really stylized in a bizarre way, almost like Steven Universe, but slightly, even nicer than that. Steven Universe is quite flat. This has got a lot more body to it, but it has that kind of look of the characters that are, unusual shaped figures. People are a bit bigger or a bit rounder or whatever they normally find in a lot of comics. The story is so strange that it just struck me. It was so unusual and so strange, but so well done that I wanted to feature it just, as an example of this kind of weirdness that can pop up, and it's worth looking at. It's really worth looking at. So it starts out with these characters having this weird kind of interaction, dressed like they're out of some David Bowie film clip or something, 1970s glam rock. It's strange. And it turns out that one of them had a dream, and they have this thing where they do these performances, real life performances of their dreams or plays they write just for themselves. So they make their own costumes and perform a play in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know, if it's based on a dream, the idea is if they can recreate the dream well enough, then they can change reality, can make themselves part of their dream or have that dream become real. So it's so weird and so interesting that, I thought, wow.
Oh, I can definitely see the glam rock influence I'm saying, and it's got this record, like the Woodstock art.
Yeah, yeah.
From the poster art, and also just she looks like Mother Earth, The dream she has looks like she's as big as the planet. I wouldn't be surprised if this didn't come out of like someone's sketchbook from that era that they were drawing during like a concert or something, and they decided to like just share it with everyone and post it online, because it just has this like very good time period piece thing to it, you know. And it's like there's lyrics everywhere. The way they talk is very it's like another realm, I guess, of this world. They're on a different level. So yeah, that was good. That was actually a really nice one because it looks like it's drawn on watercolor paper and all those textures and those nice colors.
That's another thing I forgot to mention. It wasn't digital art. Yeah, it says this was fully like analog work.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like that style's definitely in right now and coming back in a retro way. Interstellar Dust. So this was one. After I posted it, people started commenting like Mobius on the comments, and then I looked up Mobius and I didn't realize, you know, who he was. I never heard of Mobius before this. But this Interstellar Dust is about like it's like a prison on a spaceship, and all these like people who've committed bad crimes or something get locked up away in, and it follows this main character who's you know, he does things for himself and his own lifestyle and everything, but he finds himself on that spaceship and he has to get out.
Yeah. The artwork is just amazing.
Like, this is the one. You can get lost in this art for about 30 minutes a page, just looking at all the different intricate details, the characters, what they're doing. It's gorgeous. I'm just like, it's like a gift that this user's found his way to Drunk Duck and decided to post on.
It's very simplified coloring though, so the color is just, you know, only a few tones a page. It does its job. This line work is the majority of the artwork.
But it's a very smart color palette. It's like it's definitely a color scheme that's comfortable to look at. You know, like all the colors are selected in a way. Possible like monochromatic reddish brown, but mixed with like very muted greens. Yeah, it's very simple, but it works.
Yeah, it's each page has a unified color palette. So okay, so this page is going to be like like you're saying, the muted purples, blues, whatever. This page is going to be like have earth tones and more reds and greens. So it always has a good look. It's always going to look good because it's done so well. Interstellar Dust.
So because it is a professional group, I think Warn Everyone Comics is there. Like, that's their team that they're posting more comics with that group. So like, this is definitely a professional work.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. I mean, some of the expressions just remind me of like Miyazaki. Spirited Away and like, you know, what's it? Like, you know, all those things like Totoro and stuff. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. Next up we have Wild Wolves by Epic Save Room. Epic Save Room. Well, this is an interesting story. So we've got like this is an anthro comic. And not anthro as in animal, you know, humans with animal heads and stuff like that, or animals that walk onto these. This is animals. So these are not foxes, these are wolves, obviously. And it's like two different clans of wolves fighting each other. So it's done in they're fighting over territory as real wolves would do. But they're actually, you know, speaking and talking. And there's all the interesting stuff that happens, you know, with these wolves having, like battles over territory and alliances and things. And yeah, I like that. I like sort of knowing what's happening within this wolf pack and you know, how these wolves are thinking. And like there's obviously, well not obviously, but in this story there's two packs of wolves fighting. But the complication is that it is a younger male member of one group and a younger female member of the other group that are falling in love. And they don't want their other pack members to know, And they also don't want war between their clans because they love their clans, they love their people. But, so they don't want their people killed by the other team, they would prefer it to have peace, and there's all kinds of, difficulties in there. They can't, their relationship has to stay secret, they can't have people know, so there's a bit of that Romeo and Juliet kind of aspect of it. So, members of rival teams that are, at war, and their love is forbidden, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different, elements to this story. So it's worth having a look.
Just like a whole story about wolves. Yeah, it's done with great animation. Oh no, wolf culture is so good because they've got leadership in them, and everyone follows the alpha and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Nice artwork too.
I like that. I'll keep that one in mind actually, just to go back to it. Next one, it was Brisket for a Biscuit on October 23rd. That's done by it's Funi Urine. Hold on, it's Funi Urinpa. Funyurinpa or Funyurinpa.
Funny Urinpa?
Funny Urinpa. So this one was a story about sisters and siblings. There's one of the sisters goes to visit her older sister after a long time of being apart, and I think there might have been this thing where she might have run away from home or something, but she has a notebook that she keeps with her as she's on the run, and just hopefully she gets to spend time with the older sister and they can have some time together. So this is just really good for people who have a sibling or just understand familiar relationships. Sometimes they come to your life when you're least expecting it, and you're supposed to give them shelter.
All right.
Just this is actually a comic about families and siblings.
Oh, okay, and relationships and all that kind of stuff, and
yeah,
how family can be a bit of a burden and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. The Brisket for a Biscuit, which is...
It's nice sound. She does an amazing job drawing breakfast in the morning. I'm seeing beautiful eggs. It's got that same muted color palette that other comics have done. That it's calming. It's a nice little treat to read.
With a very original looking style as well.
Mm-hmm. Characters are very original, different.
Well, so next up we have The Jacket Comic. Which is an interesting title. The Jacket Comic. Probably because the jacket was already taken as a title, so they needed to be creative. By R.D. Heidelman. This is... when it starts off, it seems you don't really get into actually what's happening. So there's this loser person, really loser, and he dreams, something better happening to his life. And he really is, quite loserish. A lot of bad things happen to him. And after reading it for a while, you find that, oh my god, this guy is stuck in a totalitarian world. And there's only hints of it, ads on the news for the, elections and things like that. But you start to realize, hang on, this is like a George Orwell sort of, 1984 scenario. This world is weirdly controlled. This is a police state. And that only comes across very subtly. So you're not hit over the head with a police truncheon, police baton about, what this world is. You're eased into it. I really liked. And anyway, this guy finds this jacket, which gives him superpowers. And finally, his dreams of being special come true. So, I like that kind of thing. Where is it going to go?
Yeah.
The jacket. It's good artwork, very professional, very American style, superhero kind of stuff. But almost anime in a way as well. But yeah, it's good looking work.
I feel this is like one of those comics that I saw after you featured it, and I was like reading through it, and I realized, oh, this was this week's feature. Of course, that happens sometimes. Like, it's like, oh, I've never seen this comic before, and then I have to double check the front page. Oh, it's just been featured.
Yeah, I want to feature this. Oh, damn, it's already been featured.
Yeah, that happens. That's why before I start reading anything, one of the things is I do go through. I type in the featured thing. I type in the name of the author. I type the title. Before I get invested, I just double check. It's never been featured. Then I check, like, when did it start updating? And usually if they're really new, then of course there was no chance for it to be featured.
Yeah.
All right. So Full House by Project Nuts by Chappie.
Yes.
Okay, so I believe Project Nuts is the duo team that that creates the name Chappie, like they're Chappie.
Oh.
Full House is not to be confused with the other show, Full House. It's a slice of life of two siblings who might even be like, there might be two sets of siblings. I don't know if any of them are twins, but Project Nuts, I believe, are siblings themselves. So going back on the theme of that other comic about familial relationships and like sisters and everything, Full House is about like siblings living in a house with other siblings because the people who created the comic are siblings. And they're just, in both scenarios of the two sets of siblings in the comic are two brother and sister types that are like completely opposite of each other. And it's just showing how opposite personalities can be related and are similar to each other. So if you like siblings, this was, I would say, Full House and Risk It for Biscuit are just great comics to read about familial relationships.
And they're actually twins.
Yes. Who, the Project Nuts?
Yeah, the creators are twins.
So the creators are twins, so there might be characters who are twins in the comic itself. Yeah, so there's this... They're twinning.
Twinning.
Oh,
jeez. Well, my next one is Inner Enemy.
Yes.
And the style here, I can't remember what this reminds me of, but I don't know, maybe alternative like animation style that you'd see in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. It's a very particular stylized look to it, which is very unique and fun. It doesn't look like any other comic, which is, immediately striking. Color palette is very unified. So the work always looks quite good and, like pleasing to the eye. Well, the comic itself is about people on, like a lost colony of people it's a dying colony. There's almost too few people for the human race on this planet to continue, and there's no other options for them. So they have to be very strictly policed, like who marries who, all that kind of stuff, what kind of job you have, like one of those strict kind of planned communist societies almost, because there are so few people left. So you have to really like micromanage everything, but it means people are very socially restricted. So there's that kind of police state aspect to them, and their options for what they want to do with their lives are quite limited. And it's called Inner Enemy because, one of the characters, is he working against the state or is he not? What's happening? And obviously when people are in those planned kind of economies, planned worlds where, your role in society is like dictated to you, obviously people's wishes and dreams are slightly different from that. So, and everyone's kind of scheming to sort of get ahead of everyone else. There's a very strict hierarchy, and, dictated by, I don't know, time you've worked at somewhere and experience and achievements and stuff like that. So everyone's working to get ahead of everyone else by, doing this or that. And it's quite interesting, the different, the dynamics that are happening within this world. So yeah, it's a cool comic, The Inner Enemy.
Yeah, I like that. And that was really nice. I checked it out. I liked that. So Faint. by Stoned Raccoon. This is back in late November. It follows a girl who's looking for her missing boyfriend. So she goes outside and she gets mauled by this like mountain lion, which leads her into the underworld where she's greeted by like both Eastern and Western deities, and she has to keep this special shirt on to stay in this world, I think, or just to like or that shirt is like her ticket to the afterlife, like, or to the other world. And I just thought there was this one scene where she, like, winds up in Wisconsin, and she's just greeted by hippies who like Led Zeppelin music, and that's, in that reality, that is the afterlife. It's just like what some people consider like home. And so I think it's one of those like Phantom Tollbooth kind of adventures where you're just going through this world and meeting all sorts of individuals. And she doesn't really like stay in any one part too long. It's just like introducing hello and byes to everyone around her. So yeah, for if you like that kind of idea of like thinking about what happens in the afterworld, this is one of those newer age kind of ideas that you can like, you know, figure out what's your preference, maybe.
Yeah.
Just by reading it.
Okay. Yeah. As we said before, this was
this is also the music feature that Gun Wallace did.
Yeah, exactly. The feature for which is interesting. Synchronicity there.
Yeah.
Well, so next up we have the St. Nicholas Conspiracy. Which, okay, this one was one Gollancz recommended to me, as he does occasionally, and I thought it was a perfect one to feature for coming up to Christmas. I didn't actually feature this on Christmas Day, but it was, you know, close enough. So this is about a little girl who, you know, comes to the point where she's thinking, you know, is Santa Claus real or not? Is he real? I'm going to ask my mum. Because, you know, one of the kids at school sort of brings up the fact that, you know, if Santa Claus was real, then he'd have to travel at, you know, 1,000,000 miles an hour to get everywhere, and no one could travel faster than the speed of light, and his skin would be ripped off by friction, and, you know, obviously there's a lot of scientific reasons why Santa can't be real. So she comes home to her mum and asks her, and obviously you think, you know, this is the time when the kid learns that Santa Claus isn't real. Her, you know, perception of reality changes. She has a transition to adulthood by leaving some kind of childlike experience behind. But no, that does not happen. It's subverted because her mum comes back with a counter-argument about why Santa Claus is real. So she goes back to school and, you know, talks to her friends, and they have this like weird debate about it, and they're coming up, okay, all right, so if Santa Claus is real, then there'll have to be a conspiracy, like either way. Like, is there a weird conspiracy that all the parents are making up about Santa Claus? And, you know, like, for Santa Claus not to be real, then there would have to exist a conspiracy. And is that realistic, that people actually could maintain this conspiracy away from us? You know, maybe the idea that Santa Claus isn't real is a conspiracy. So Santa Claus has to be real. And they keep on going backwards and forwards about that. And there's this weird, like, subversion of skeptical thinking in there it's really fun in that. It's very, very fun, this childlike view of, you know, how Santa Claus can be real and how he can't, and how the adults keep coming back with counter-arguments about how he's real, and demolishing their childish logic and attempts of breaking through the myth.
Oh, that's funny. When children think like adults. That's cool. So, Barkham Horror by Scott D. was, I think this is done by Scott D and Golden is like the pair that makes these comics. And it's about like a girl goes back home and they find out that, she's looking to meet her father, who she's been estranged from, but all she meets is his lawyer, and there's like a will that she's been left this big house. So she's like, there's this big and mysterious thing. What happened to her father? Did he like leave for like another island and go to like just ditch her before she arrives? or is there something more? And so she's going to meet all his friends who are in town at the time, who can tell her more about her father and what might have happened. But there's a lot of heavily Asian influences in some of the art, the friends and the art, and they've written in the writer's notes that they did a lot of research on types of foods that were eaten in Japanese cuisine and the interiors. They've done a lot of research on just Japanese architecture to just kind of make this more of an authentic, put in a real world kind of setting. Even though everyone in there are like different animals, like she's like a dog, the main character. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a mystery going on, and it's still unraveling. But the duo that makes the comic, they're extremely nice pair, and they were very, I think, happy. Like when you see the comments on the front page that they're like not expecting it. I love those types the best. When I'm excited to be featured, or I didn't know I was going to be on the cover.
Yeah, exactly. I love that kind of, they really appreciate it, and it's
I love it. This Scott D, the creator, he lives with his dog Ziggy Stardust, so we already get they're from Essex. So
from Britain.
Yeah, Britain. Yep, making comics based in like Japan, like old Japan architecture,
and amazing looking work too.
Yes.
So that was Barkham Horror.
Yes, Barkham Horror by Scott D. Yes,
Scott D. It's an interesting name. All right, next up we have another interesting name, Andreas Helixfinger.
Helixfinger.
Yes.
Helixfinger.
He has a bony hand as his avatar. And he's quite a contributor to the, for news posts and stuff like that. So he's a face that's around about town. And he has Molly Lusk as his comic, which is obviously a bit of a pun on mollusk. So she is a black woman, but she's really a black walrus, anthropomorphic walrus with legs instead of flippers. And she has this weird talent where she eats soap bubbles. She loves soap bubbles, and she blows bubbles, that is, and can do weird things with them. Like she can silence a pistol by blowing a bubble around the bullet when she fires it. And, just bizarre kind of weird stuff. Like, she is a chain smoker. She can't stop smoking. But when she smokes, she puts all the smoke to bubbles. So she disguises the fact that she's smoking all the time. It's so fun in that way. So Molly Lusk is this strange character who, started off poor and is very creative and very interesting and a good entertainer. She marries into a lot wealthier, and she makes her way up through society by, her cleverness and her skill and her wit, and has all these kind of affairs and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like a story of from the early 20th century or something, one of those kind of characters, a woman sort of making it in the world, the best way she can. And yeah, that's Molly Lusk's life, except it's not from the early 20th century. This is like in the future where there are animal-human hybrids and they live on an island together. So yeah, it was so unusual and so interesting that, that was the reason why I featured it.
It's funny that Chernobyl's the reason for their being anthropomorphic animals.
Yes.
So that means Ukraine's got a ton.
The epicenter of the mutagenic
yes.
issues. Well,
so let's see. So now we're entering recent history in this month.
Oh, yes.
So here we are in the last two. So we're almost at the end. Legend of Windfirst. And also The Legend of Windfirst by Miguel Hahn. So this one was the fully Spanish comic about a fighter who is he's like a boxer and he works in the ring, and he goes to town and there's a bunch of, he's in the town of not just human people either. there's like anthropomorphic creatures all around, but he gets back to his apartment and there's like a Pokeball, almost like there's like a ball that's hatched, and he's trying to figure out what was in there, and he talks to his real dog, like, what could it be, boy? And they go outside and there's this like bat looking creature who is like wearing like what looks like one of those lucha libre masks. But anyway, it's all in Spanish. It's perfect for we have a lot of members of Drunk Duck who speak Spanish, and so like this is getting definitely a good it's like showing, you know, hey, we're a universal, like, on the world site, and like everyone can make a comic. You don't have to make it in English to post it on Drunk Duck. As long as most of it, I was doing the feature, you then realize that the art plays such a big role in your enjoyment of a comic, because I could kind of get the story just by like going through the panels and just generally getting a lot of the body language of the characters or the expressions were giving me a lot. But if I had a question, what's going on here, besides like reading the lines, I could like, you know, run it through translator, and that works. But it goes to show, like, if you have a comic that is in a different language, you can honestly get a lot of readers through the art itself. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is our first English as a second language. Well, not English as a second. This is our first non-English comic that we featured. Earlier, we featured comics that do have different versions. So there's like a German version, an English version, or whatever. Or the creator speaks English as a single language. But we've never done a comic fully in just a different language, which is interesting. So it's good to actually have that here.
I think we've seen some like Asian creators, or there was the one called what was it? Makoto? It was also another Spanish one a few years back. But yeah, it's like I don't know, I love those ones because I studied, you know, different languages in school, and like reading comics in those languages helped me kind of like brush up on things, or just to see how much I know.
Yeah. Without
having to translate her.
Okay. Try and get through it. Yeah. Well, yeah, we do have a lot of creators who are not English speakers. A lot of them on the side.
Yeah. Interesting.
But, you know,
that's
Russian,
so cool.
Spanish speakers, Portuguese speakers, Icelandic.
Yeah.
Everything.
I would love to see like an fully Icelandic comic, actually.
Oh yeah, we had a few Icelandic creators, but they all speak English there, so as well.
We're talking about. Okay, I remember. Yeah, we did have Icelandic. We had a lot of Icelandic users. What happened to them?
Well,
yeah,
I don't know.
That one little guy. I mean, his avatar was a little guy, but I don't.
Gunwallace. No,
not Gunwallace. You know, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Gulas, yes. And product placement, and there were more people.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, great contributors to the site, but yeah, people move on with their lives, and a lot happens in years. I mean, we're one of the oldest webcomic sites.
Yeah.
Anywhere, so a lot of life happens in between. We're not like the newbies, like all the Tapas and Webtoons and Comic Fury and whatever else.
The people I think who stuck around were over a certain age. They weren't like 10 years old when we started. I mean, we were legal adults, I think, by that time, that it's like there's going to be a bit of shifts and stuff here and there, but it's not like going from high school, or even elementary school. I think if you middle school, so much shifts in 10 years versus if you start in like your 30s you know what I'm saying? There are shifts, but you're not like
not as world changing to the person.
Yeah, it's not plate tectonics kind of shifts. Yeah.
Well, last up we have Ripping Off King Arthur, the final comic of the year. The final, very final, the end. And I would have told you about this comic at the very... I did tell you about this comic at the start of this QUACKCAST, so we'll just be going over it again in some ways. Okay, Ripping Off King Arthur. So the idea behind this is that... the title anyway is that all comics, all stories, everything in the world is basically a rip-off of King Arthur in different ways. And that's the key to writing a successful piece of work that people love. You've got to do a rip-off of King Arthur. It can't be too slavish, can't be an exact copy, and it can't be too original. It has to be like this perfect balance, and then you create the perfect story. Anyway, what really happens with this comic is like it's very meta. It's like a webcomic about webcomics. It makes fun of a lot of the tropes of that webcomics use, a lot of the ideas behind webcomics. You know, if I do this webcomic, I'll get like rich and famous. Or, you know, if I read this webcomic, you know, maybe it'll finally become funny. I'm not getting it, everyone else is getting it. Maybe if I keep on reading it, maybe I can finally get to understand the humor. It's so meta, and it's so silly and so crazy, and it's so clever that the humor is really like what I would consider like a masterclass in webcomic humor, because it develops jokes over many pages, and then it calls back to that joke, and it calls back again, and calls back. And there's a lot of jokes based on stuff that only webcomickers would know, and people who've been webcomicking for a lot of time, a long while. You know, like it's making jokes on like the kind of people who used to do webcomic and the personas they create, and you know what they think webcomics will do for them. Like, oh yeah, I'll become a billionaire if I do this comic in the right way, or you know, I'm ultra feminist, so I do a comic in this kind of way, or you know, I'm so crazy and weird, and this is how I do my webcomic. It was really fun for me to read this, because I've been webcomicking for many years now. I have known and I've seen all these kind of people. So yeah, this is a good comic. I recommend it. I love it.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
A good
That
thing
sounds
to
good.
finish up on.
Excellent. Yeah.
This will be our longest QUACKCAST of 2019. Over 2 hours. Massive. Sorry for that, people, but you get a lot of us to listen to. And you have not heard Kwai for many,
Yes.
a long time. So, yeah.
Yes. But yes, it seems that we started the fellowship with 4 just now. We've lost some of our contributors, our people on this QUACKCAST.
Yeah.
We made it to the end.
Baines and Tans have buggered off. They couldn't stick around, so it's just us 2 featurers.
But makes sense because it's on features, so we know about these comics.
Yeah,
because we featured them. Hopefully,
we know what
everyone.
we're doing.
Yeah. No, you don't, for sure. No, but I honestly have, I've been out with friends, and I'm like, I have a featured comic 1 second, and I step aside for like 2 hours, and I come back and okay, resume the night. That I've done 1 feature on my phone. That was 1 time.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
2.
I've done that a couple of times. It's not easy.
We're just on the road, and it's like I just got to get this done. Got to get it turned in.
It's not easy, but
it's not easy at all. Yeah,
it's good when you can do that, when you can, and it works out. Sometimes, I've done features where it hasn't worked out. I've read like 100 pages of a damn comic and found I can't feature it. And then
here's to the 2010s though. Like, you've definitely been featuring the entire decade. I've featured for 2/3 of it because Gold Monkey was still doing them up until like 2013, around then.
Yeah,
maybe 2012. Yeah, she was contributing to the QUACKCAST, the recordings and everything.
Yeah.
And so here's to 2020.
Yeah, 2020, and then more good features for that year.
For more, bring in more ducks. We're open.
Yes, more ducks, because our site has the full range of adult and life experience, so we can have adult comics and kids comics and everything in between.
And we read your comics. We're real humans. We don't generate features from air.
Yes.
Like, we go through I care about comic features because I know the person who created the comic spent years sometimes generating their material, so they deserve,
recognition.
A thorough, And to all those 1,000-page comics, hopefully, yes, we will get to you guys.
Yeah, there's a reason why we feature a lot of comics that are like 15 pages or so, because we can.
There should be a thing though, like if there is an extensive archive, like just to kind of like read through a couple of the beginning and then and feature and hone in on like the last couple of pages that they've done. No, because I really want to get those big archives featured.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Definitely a big goal. Yeah.
I mean, it's intimidating to new readers as well to go to that. But yeah, I'll definitely feature really long comics occasionally. Yeah, and the strategy is you obviously don't read every page. You read a lot of pages in the beginning, maybe a sample in the middle, and a chunk
and then read
the
what's
Yeah, exactly. Just to get a feel of it and know it's featurable. Yeah. But yeah,
well,
all right.
So congratulations those who got featured in 2019.
And Happy New Year to everyone in 2020, which is the day after this cast.
Yeah.
When your feature comes out.
Cheers. Yes.
Your feature comes out on the new year. On the first day of the new year. So, yeah, people get to find out what that is. The first feature of 2020.
The first feature. Oh, my. Oof. What a year. I'm just... So many things. 20. All right. So, signing off, I am Kawaii Ragakse.
And I'm Ozone Ocean. See you next year.
Woo!
Happy New Year, everyone.
Hey!
All right. Bye-bye.